Hello and welcome to Conversations about Language Teaching. I am Dr. Diane Neubauer. My pronouns are she, her, and as usual, my co-host is,
I'm Dr. Reed Riggs, pronouns are he, him.
and today we have a very special guest, Adriana Ramirez. And Adriana, I always think of your name is pronounced that way, but would you correct me? Did I pronounce?
It's fine. I mean, if you want to say like real Spanish would be Adriana.
Adriana. I can get closer at least.
Adriana.
Yeah, Adriana.
hmm
And she is, as noted there, a Spanish teacher working in Canada, but originally from Colombia. And we're excited to have her here because one of the ideas Reed and I had in doing these podcast episodes was talking about something with conversation analysis, which we've talked about in an episode. I think it was the fifth episode of the whole series. We're in episode 42 already. But that is a way of looking at the way people interact and really understanding how are they structuring that? How are they building off of each other? And it's very handy in comprehension-based classrooms because it's including all of the things that they might use to keep that interaction happening or where it breaks down and where they do repair. And so for teachers, it can be a very keen tool to help us understand how people can understand a new language, how they develop the ability to produce new language, how they respond to target language use in a classroom. All of these kinds of things can be really closely looked at.
hmm
And Reed and I both admire Adriana's teaching anyway, and knew that she had a number of videos online and contacted her to see, would you be open to allowing us to use one of your videos and perhaps to joining us as we look at it to kind of talk through some of the things we see in that. And so we'll share the video link. It is a public video on YouTube from one of Adriana's classes, I think maybe 1 or 2 years ago.
This year,
This year.
this is
Oh,
school
wow.
year, so that the date is there, October
Oh, yeah.
something,
I don't have it showing right
2025.
now, but
Yeah, no,
Okay,
it's
very recent.
very,
just
very
the
recent.
semester that I just finished.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
terrific.
So
So,
to add to what we will be doing today, we're going to under promise and hopefully over deliver on what is not going to be the level of rigor that conversation analysis research would be doing. And so for that,
right.
you'd get extensive video, you transcribe all of it with lots of detail into how the people are talking and how they're moving their bodies and resources they're using. And you do that so that you can really notice every little bit of what's going on, and so that you have this record, this document record, to look at the sequence of each of these things. And then you can see, oh, this person used their finger to point at this thing, and then that enabled the next person next to respond in this way, and then the first person to respond to that in this way. So you can really see the sequence of all the things going on. We're not doing that here to that level of detail. What we are doing is something more just inspired by conversation analysis. We
Right.
didn't transcribe any of this. We our plan is to look at a small segment of video and really pick it apart. And so we will be ideally looking at the sequence of, oh, I noticed you said this and then that student said that, or you pointed to this thing and then they laughed, whatever comes up. But yeah, the idea here is a very light version, which I think also has value for teachers to reflect on their own practices using video. Because if you say, oh no, you have to do it at this high level of rigor because that's what researchers need to do to make their claims valid. I think most people would say, well, that's just too much work. I don't have that kind of. I also would take a lot of training to do it like that. So I think the sort of take-home version is if you can get some video, just pick apart a little piece of that video and notice. Because I found this to be very inspiring, just to say, oh, I never thought about that. Wait a minute. And then I make generalizations. Wait a minute. It seems like maybe in general, if you say this kind of thing, that invites students to offer this sort of response.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah. And so maybe to start us, typically we would not require visuals because this is usually an audio podcast and that's where most of our audience is. So we will try to describe what we're seeing. And Adriana, would you mind describing kind of the context? Where are we? Who are the students? Who are you? What kinds of things were going on? What was typical for your classroom? All those kinds of details.
So this is filmed in October 2025, but it's something that I do every year with my second year Spanish students. So I have practices that I do with my first year Spanish students, other things with my second year Spanish students, third and fourth. Some things are the same throughout all their journey in Spanish, and some things are different because I teach mostly the same group of kids. So I want to have diverse things. So when they come to the new year, they have like the new ingredient that is surprise. So this, what I do is I want to be clear, second year Spanish students, because when I shared these things before, some people with their first year Spanish students, they start doing it and they're like, oh, it didn't work. Of course it didn't work. They were not ready for that. So you have to build some good foundations before you jump to this kind of things that hopefully we'll get to discuss later in more in depth. So this is, I taught all of these students in their first year in grade 9. So grade 9, they're 14 years old. This is grade 10. So they are 15 years old, kind of, give and take. So we have a really, really good relationship already. But after this series of picture talks, so where people are going to be seeing our picture talks, after this series of picture talks, we become a tight family. Like it takes us to a next level. Like we had already built a good relationship, but this is like deep. So you are going to see me. What I do is that I share pictures. Picture talks is one of the many ways we can provide students with comprehensible input. And there are different ways of doing it, but I created like a system for doing them in my year 2 classes. So I share pictures of myself. I share pictures of myself every day. I see them every day for 80 minutes in a semester system. So a semester is 4 months, really, like September to right now we finished Friday, and then we'll start another semester next week until June. So I see them every day for 80 minutes. So after a couple weeks of reading a novel as a review, when they come back after probably a year with no Spanish, I start doing these pictures and I use pictures of myself. So I have an endless PowerPoint of pictures with different versions of me when I was a baby, when I was a teenager, with in the 80s, with neon colors and shoulder pads, my wedding, different things. And every time something, I don't know, cool happens, I throw another picture in my PowerPoint. I might not use them all, but I just have different pictures because it depends on the class. Like I read the class. Some pictures are a staple that I know they're going to be a hit, yes or yes. But sometimes I see like this class I think will enjoy this picture and this class will enjoy this other picture. So that's why I have so many pictures. So every day, sacred, I have my routine I start with my songs and then some personalized questions. And then I jump into the picture talk and I just share. I share a picture about myself. I keep it to the level of the language that I know they can handle. So everything that I'm saying is at their level. I know them really well. When I am introducing new words, I start writing them on the board, or I write things for support because I have different levels within the same class. So I start writing things for support just to scaffold and give them that differentiation that they need. And at the end also of this session, or every session, I ask questions. So it's interpretive rubric perspective. So I will ask them questions with the lowest effective filter that you can imagine. Like nothing happens if you don't know, but I will say, okay, so who did I meet? When? What was the day? So like questions, but a lot of the information is already on the board. So they can access it. If they were paying attention, they can look at it. And it's also a good way for me to measure, are they paying attention? Are they learning? Did they understand the whole story that I tell? Every day I share pictures. How many pictures people ask? I don't know. It's a gut feeling. Some days one picture can give me literally, like this class was like 30 minutes with one picture. And it was so much fun. And sometimes I show one picture and then I see that the energy is going down a little bit. I show another picture and then move on to a different activity. So it changes. It's more like a reading the energy of the class. It's not like how many minutes? I don't know. Like this is an excuse for me to stay in the target language and have a cool conversation with the students. So I don't have minutes. If I 30 minutes, I will say 30 minutes. But if tomorrow the picture just gave me 5 minutes because whatever, it was not a hit, 5 minutes and move on to the next activity, whatever I have in mind to do with them. So that's very important. And then after I do this for like a couple months, literally a couple months, and they love it, they love it, they love it. And they learn so many words in context. So it's so beautiful. It's their turn. But I put myself there first. So I said, okay, mis amores, now you're going to choose a couple of pictures about yourselves that you want to share, that you feel comfortable sharing with the class. You don't have to be in the picture, or you can, whatever. I showed them every kind of picture. So you can have pictures of your pets, your families, your grandparents. I don't know.
Anything,
so,
yeah.
and then anything, but this is like towards the end of their second year. So they're ready for this. And then and I have videos of this, just, and I do not post these videos on YouTube because it's now their lives and their personal stories. So I don't want to, but when I have like trainings with teachers, I show them. So you're seeing the video right now. They're standing on one side of the screen. I am standing on the other side because they're still my baby. So I have to hold their hands in case they're going to fall. And then they start talking about the picture. And I say, chill, like this is not a oral presentation. You're just going to talk about choose a picture that you can talk about. You get to choose the picture. I'm not choosing for you. And I say, and you chill. If I see that you're getting scared or nervous, I will jump in, ask you questions, ask the class questions. So it's like a triangle. And I'm leading that movement in the triangle.
Yeah.
Question. So this video we're about to watch, at this point in time, so the students have been routinized into knowing kind of what to look and listen for, how to participate by mostly watching, laughing, maybe answering your questions when you ask questions. At this point in time, do they know that it's building towards them giving presentations about themselves?
No, they don't.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Good to know.
And one thing before I start the video, because this is great stuff. One of the things that I noticed, because I've watched the video 3 or 4 times already, like a number of things you just pointed out about the way even the selection of the photo is student-centered in your mind. Because I think there are times where people would say, well, this is a very teacher-led practice that's happening in this classroom. And comprehension-based teachers are often critiqued for that, as if we should have the students talking much more, or we should not have the teacher guiding a discussion with the whole class. But that's an excellent practice when it's so tailored, like you just said. It's not only tailored to their language proficiency level, which is something the teacher can do better than a set of recordings, but also their interests, and you're responding in real time. And so there are so many ways, I think, that you are doing very student-centered practices in here. And so I want to make note of that. I think that we need to rethink what that word means.
Well, I want to point out too that we would not have seen in this video alone your normal practice of following their interest and then moving on to a new picture, or just ending the activity when they're not interested. And so it otherwise might have looked like to us as first viewers who don't know that background, that it's possible they're being dragged through it and you're just like pushing them no matter what their interest is. But no, it's good to know.
You see a lot of cues here in the interaction. They are not being dragged through this. They are having a ball. But, you could have someone think, well, today it went well, or maybe it's just Adriana's personality is so compelling. They're just drawn in because it's her, and I couldn't do that because, but there are other things, other layers on layers that are happening here, I think. And
well, another teacher might have some other set of pictures that they're interested in, but it's still always about, it sounds like it's always about following, choosing pictures and then following through based on student shows of interest.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So Diane, for showing the video, I think it's good that we watch the very beginning and discuss the beginning.
That's what
we might consider at some point jumping to the part that you
the transition part
had talked about. There was a part that you were interested in that was also on my list of interesting parts at I think 12:30. Was that it? 12:30?
Yeah. Or it was close to just before 12 for me, but that we could keep going for
So let's see how far we want to get, but then also if we want to skip ahead to that was a point of interest that you and I both discussed.
Okay. Let's go for that.
Cool. So let's start
we'll
from
see
the
setup and then hear maybe from Adriana about that, and then
sure.
Here we go.
Do we want to describe as she
binder. Verbos en el binder, cierran el binder, amores, Alex y Jax. A sus
Okay, so pause.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so
we'll
she's saying,
pause,
okay, loves.
describe what
Okay,
we see.
okay, amores. Like, okay, my loves. Is that right? Okay, so
Mhm.
and you're gesturing your hand, like come forward. So are they sitting kind of in the back, and you want them to move more close to the front?
Yeah, so we don't have desks. I have a couple desks in the back.
Okay.
They were writing something from the story that we had
Mm,
been working on.
mm,
So
mm.
it was time to start with the picture. So I told them
Okay.
like, come, put everything on in the binder, come to the front.
Okay. All right.
Mhm,
Great.
mhm,
Setting
mhm.
up.
So this
All
is
right.
the transition of
Yeah.
one
Mhm.
activity to the next.
Physically move their bodies close up. Okay. Good. Good to
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so on screen, for those just looking at audio, we see just Adriana at the front of her classroom. There's a projector and then a big whiteboard. Nothing is written on the whiteboard that seems pertinent right now. There is something up at the top, but
The
and there's
date, it looks
nothing
like.
showing yet
Yeah.
on the projection screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
La torta de hoy es la torta de hoy. La torta de hoy. La foto de hoy es muy especial.
So today's
Photo
photo
de
is
hoy,
very
today's
special.
photo. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't have a torta. Is it torta?
It's because in a previous picture, I showed them a picture with a torta, which is a cake.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
birthday
Cake, that's
cake,
it.
Okay.
and
Okay.
they loved that one. So this, is
Okay.
it gonna
No
have a
torta
torta? And I
today.
was like, no, no torta.
Yeah. It's
A
like,
student asked. Is that what happened? A student asked?
Yes, is it
Okay.
gonna have
Got
a
it.
torta? And I was like, no,
Okay.
no.
You said no, no
uh,
torta. Okay. I got
yeah.
it.
And this was one of the things that I picked up on in watching this whole thing. You could call them callbacks. Like it's evident that you are building on interaction that goes way back, perhaps. Maybe since you taught them a year before, there could be, jokes that have developed over this time. And then just you can make little side comments. They can make them, you can make them, you build them
Mm,
together. And it's like,
yeah.
we've got this little connection. So that was a
Yeah.
cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Ready for a little more? Or
Yeah. Yes.
yeah. So she's showing the photo.
So it's a wedding photo, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
And
students, it looks like this the sequence real quick. Can you go back real quick? Like maybe
Sure.
5 seconds. It looks like the sequence that I'm seeing is that the picture shows up, the students respond first, going, ah, ooh, ah, and then she jumps in, putting her hand over her mouth.
yeah, she's looking at the students as she shows that photo.
Yeah, that's right.
And
So
they
the students
gasp.
react first, and then she joins in with the gasp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And has
mhm.
this wonderful look on her face, like, oh, look at the photo. And yeah.
Yeah,
So
which is
very
cool
fun.
because you weren't leading them and showing them how to react. You were checking how they react and then joining in with them. I think
Yeah.
that's a cool thing.
Yeah. You're waiting like with anticipation.
I'm
And
wondering
then
how
when they
they'll
start going,
react. Yeah, yeah.
oh, and then you kind of like, oh, yeah. Like, so
Cool.
yeah. The matching, the mirroring of the emotion there.
Mhm.
Gracias, gracias. Bueno,
So thank you.
es el día de mi matrimonio.
And that word's being
Es
written
el
on the
día de
board.
mi
Yeah, she writes that on the board.
Matrimonio.
Bien.
So
Repeats
that
it.
Es
my
el día de
anniversary.
mi matrimonio. En la foto hay
So in the photo there is
5 personas.
5 people.
En la foto estoy yo, soy yo, y mi
Here's me.
esposo,
That's me.
And she's pointing with a pointer.
My husband.
mi papá y mi hermanita. Hay
Hermanita, my little
5
sister.
personas. Yo, el verbo es casarse. Yo me casé en Colombia.
Yeah. And just to note that for the sound,
Mm-hmm.
she's written casarse on the board. And then that slow voicing was where that was. And then an arrow to me casé, which I think means
Casé?
got married.
Is it
Because
casé?
I got married. Yeah.
Got
I
married,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things too, like I do not teach Spanish and I don't think I have more than novice low Spanish, but I could understand this video, particularly after the second time. Like the way in which you're proceeding cautiously, the places your students, you perceived, I think, that they may need some scaffolding. I did too. And so it became really helpful for me. So now I thought that's what that must have meant. But there's also a board that's kind of helping you with some verb ending kinds of points there. So you're using some resources.
Yeah, I have a chart with the verb endings in past tense because we have two past tenses in Spanish, and it's like for noticing the ending, I just point at the ending every time I say it,
Yeah.
just so they make the connection eventually. They will make
Mhm.
it. And the chart is there for their exams and everything. And when they're ready to stop looking at the chart, they naturally stop looking at the chart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And
Right.
the fact that the chart is there doesn't mean that they're going to use it well anyways. It's just
Exactly.
Yes,
when they're
yes, I've seen
ready.
that as well. Yeah,
Yep.
using it accurately depends on their skill level. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
right.
Right. Do we want to continue from this a little bit more, or do we want to kind of describe what happens and then jump towards
I'm okay with that. So the couple of things I point out here, one is that if my memory serves me right, you only pointed to the picture when you started, and so you counted the people, you pointed to who each person is, and the rest of it, for the rest of the time, the picture just serves as sort of a centering background, but there's no more details to point at in the picture. You just move on with the story of how you met your husband and how you first started dating, and the class is wrapped, and that's the interesting interaction is
Mhm.
between you and the class. But the
Yeah.
picture, from this point on, it doesn't serve as like a pointing resource, like something to discuss the details in. There's not a critique. I found it really interesting
Yeah,
that
it's just an observation. It's yeah.
well, and
And
I
it
was
works
thinking, yeah. Hmm.
depending on the picture.
Okay.
There are
Mm.
other pictures that I will use the picture more and describe every. I have a picture that I had already shown with the cake, with the famous
Okay.
cake,
Okay.
that had all my cousins. We talked about their names, what they do, if they're married, where they
Sure.
live, if they have kids. No, so the
Yeah.
picture was more
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
tool. This
Yeah.
one is just an excuse for me to tell them my age
Sure.
Yes,
and how I
right.
met my
Which maybe
husband.
is before the story of how you met your husband and how you started to date. And
Yeah.
there's like I noted like it goes through about 8 minutes and 40 seconds or so where you are doing much more interactive, almost yes, the picture is there kind of as the backdrop, and you are checking that they did understand the ages, who the people are. But then you ask them too like who there's some jokes back and forth about age and how in the photo you're 22, so a student says in the future because apparently you tell them that you're always 21, and so this comes up as this another callback that was throughout this lesson. And then let's see, then also asking them about their mother's age. And so there
Hmm.
was a little bit of back and forth. So I find like that first 8 minutes, 40 seconds was like this, here's the picture and the details of the picture and the comparison to maybe the students, which you can presume are not married probably in 10th grade, but are maybe dating, maybe thinking about dating, maybe interested in someone or someone's, and or vice versa. They're being sought out. And so this is like really like the choice of this is like really prime on their minds. But also, you met him first when you were in their grade level. And that I thought was this amazing little another connection point. And I thought she may have chosen to say that part of her story just to connect. And I do you happen to know if that was a part of that or
Of course, because it was my best friend. I was in high school, grade 10, and I know it's like it's gonna resonate with them like
That's cool.
strong.
Yeah.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
chose details relevant to the audience in front of you.
Mhm.
That's great.
yeah.
I was going to say also the matrimonio sounds like matrimony in English, but casarse, I can't think of an English word. But I was thinking the pictures of a wedding, matrimonio is the word you've given, and then you put the word casarse, arrow, me casé, under it. And I thought, okay, I don't know that word, but this context, I can't guess any other meaning and the me is like, I know, like myself, some verb, some action. And so I just thought it's gotta mean I got married. Like
Got married.
there's so much context that I just am left with only guessing what's probably the right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything about the transition time. So at least to me, there was a transition from something that was more directly led by the picture and the details of the photo into then talking about the story of how you met. Almost more of moving from like in my mind from picture talk towards more of a storytelling. using some of the techniques that would happen in story listening, but I would say a little bit more focus on word level comprehension of students, maybe, than sometimes happens in story listening. It depends. It depends. But so do you want to see a little bit of that transition part, Reed, or do you
Sure.
want to jump to the next?
Yeah.
Okay, because then we
I'm
can go
open.
to the part that you and I were both like, let's talk
Sure.
about this one. So
Let's go in order, go in sequence.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So here's where she is
Okay.
beginning.
So now
that
it's 8
next
minutes
section.
and 39 seconds we're jumping to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
La historia de mi matrimonio con mi esposo es romántica.
Yeah. So the story of how my husband and I got married is romantic. So
Okay, sí, atención. Porque hay dos historias.
And I love this. There's attention in there. Like the phrase is like, this is important, you know. Yeah.
Hay dos historias importantes.
Yeah.
Historia número uno, ¿cómo conocí a mi esposo?
Yeah. And the number
How
of
did I
things
come
you're
to know
doing,
yeah.
like visually,
Yeah.
like you make eye contact with them, you pause, like slowing down those words. And I'm guessing perhaps you're perceiving like, I'm going to track and see, do they get conocí? You point at a resource on the board where I presume it's helping them know that that's past tense, knew or met someone. Yeah. And Adriana just gave me thumbs up on camera. So, and then you turn to the board and you start to write the word conocí. You know, how did we meet? How did we get to know each other? Yeah.
Which also helps focus a main story point. So it's a vocabulary word, but it's also like, this is the part of the story the story information we're doing right now. Yeah.
Two stories. One, how did we meet? Then how did we get together as a couple? Yeah. Anything else you want to inform us of there, Adriana? Or
No, we're good.
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Reed, should I jump to the end of
I want to see what she does
11
with this. So
or
she's going to
15?
write it. I want to see what happens on the board here.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go.
Historia número uno, ¿cómo conocí a mi esposo? ¿Bien? ¿Entienden?
Okay, pause real quick.
Historia
Yeah.
That little number one does something extra. It's the first part of the story, and so it's not just simply like, here's a vocab word you need. So I love that there's this extra function set to it, and it's such a simple thing for a teacher to do. My boards get messy, and I have in the past put like a vertical line first so I can kind of make it less messy, but that still ends up looking like a vocab list, which could be any word that we're using. But this is different. This is a functional little piece of organization on the board. So it's not just a vocab word. Yeah.
I didn't notice that it had number one circled until just now.
Yeah,
And so,
me too. Neither
like,
did
I
I.
remembered that conocí was up on the board, but I didn't remember that it was like, okay, here's point one, meeting.
Because the other words on the board don't have a little one next to them for good reason. They're not
They're just
a major
support.
topic organizer in the story. So yeah, it's a cool little detail. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
es muy jugosa. ¿Qué es jugosa?
Playful, funny.
Es una historia jugosa. Bueno, yo estaba
Yeah.
Juicy.
Oh, juicy. Oh,
They
juicy.
they said it.
Better.
They said it there. Someone said juicy.
Did they say it before you, or you said it first? Who said it first?
No, they said it. They said
They
it.
said it first.
I said jugosa, and I said, ¿qué es
Oh.
jugosa? And they said,
Okay.
juicy.
Oh, juicy. Okay, so this is a word that they knew that you were checking.
They didn't know. They know jugo.
Oh.
So I said
okay.
jugosa, and that's why I said, ¿qué es jugosa? To see if they would pick it up, because
Okay.
they know jugo, they can figure it out. Some of them.
Okay. Yeah.
And then someone yelled it out and said, juicy.
Yeah, so now you've
Nice.
got the connection. And then you've like kind of pre-fronted this is like, get ready for this story.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that
That's gonna
it
be a good
helps
one.
put in context, because some of the things that I think we'll end up probably skipping over, but
Sure.
that are so cool. So go watch her video,
Yeah.
where the students are responding to some of the details about being in 10th grade, and your friend was dating him and then they broke up, and then And then there was a student that broke into English saying like, OMG, Ms. Ramirez, it's your chance. And something like that. And like,
Oh, that's the part we want to watch. Yeah, I think we want to
oh,
get
is
to
that the
that
part we want to watch? Oh,
That's
I
it. That's
forgot.
at
I was
12
thinking that was coming up
12:30.
too fast, but okay.
Mm-mm.
Well,
Yeah.
spoiler. Sorry.
Yeah. Cool.
We'll get there. Do you want to see any more of this read, or Adriana, do
I'm
you want
okay.
to have us see it? Okay. Okay, we'll jump to that very section then, because
Sure.
it was towards the end, well, about halfway through minute 11, I think is maybe we'll provide a little context.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, let it play.
Let's see.
Mayor era un grupo de amigos. Yo conocí al novio de mi amiga porque yo conocía el hermano de mi amiga y éramos amigos. Bueno,
Right. I think you just did a little like a grammar, not a pop-up, but just like a check-in that drawn out voicing was to compare those two past tenses, I think.
Yes, the two past tenses. Yes.
Because you
Question,
mentioned conocí, and then over on the board behind, like that's permanently up there. There's Adriana went over and pointed to a verb ending,
The ia,
so
yeah, the
they're
ia
clued
ending.
in. I think it's the difference between met like a point in time
One.
thing, and you knew them in the past, like
Yeah.
Used to.
I'm wondering, does that also serve the story? I'm curious about that. So does it make the story more clear?
Yeah,
That it
yeah.
was-
Like I would never use, I would put the story first and the grammar second in that sense. Like, so conocía, I wanted to say I used to know, like I knew
Uh-huh.
all of
yeah,
them.
this was your buds. These were your friends that you
Yes,
hung out with a
yes.
lot, and now so
But it's a good way to point it out because in English we only have one past tense. So it's a good way to point it out so they can see how you move between both past tenses naturally in Spanish within the same
Oh, right.
sentence.
Okay.
yeah, with the same
Yeah.
verb even. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. How would it impact the story if it was the other past tense?
No, I first said, yo conocí a mi esposo. I met my husband, which is because
When you
yo
met,
conocía, I
Uh-huh.
used to know all the group of his friends, like all.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it
very
wouldn't
good.
make sense without that, I think. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
cuando conocí al novio de mi amiga, yo pensé, wow, qué guapo. Pero era el novio de mi amiga.
Yeah, I love this too. So, you
that,
you
yeah.
thought he was very handsome, but here it is, it's his friend. And the body language you're doing here is worth looking up this YouTube video.
Yeah.
But like the expressiveness of that whole thing, like this wasn't
Acting out
something
the
you could act on,
emotions,
but
acting out
yes.
the annoyed, bothered feelings of the moment. Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Silencio.
And
Cierra la
silencio,
boca,
didn't say
Silence,
anything.
cierra los ojos.
Silence.
Silencio.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And this one too, you're acting the part of like you closed your mouth and you closed your eyes, and then you literally close your eyes in front of the class, and you literally moved your hand across your mouth as if zipping it shut, and then silence, and just the
Performing
It's-
the story. Yeah. Of
yeah
the body. Yeah,
you've
it's great.
re-feeling the way that it was for you as this young
Yeah,
woman
yeah.
now a few years after you had first met him, but now you're
Yeah.
re-meeting him.
Right.
Bueno, mi amiga y el novio terminaron.
Oh my gosh, that's your chance, Mr.
That
There it was. That's the one that I teased earlier.
So let's go back in sequence. So she said, what was it? The my friends. What was
My
it?
friend and her boyfriend they broke up, so
They
I know
ended, yeah.
they might not all of them know that word. Like I'm not probably
Yeah,
a couple of them,
terminal.
so that's why I said terminaron.
Yeah, with
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
heart,
she
a heart
did,
gesture breaking with
gesture.
your hand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then the students gave the reaction, and then the one boy says,
They understood. They understood.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why
It's
one
your
said
chance,
like, "Oh,
it's your
this is your
chance,
chance, Mr. Ramirez."
Yeah. Yeah. And the sounds of the ooh, like
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of the things about this video is we can't see the students, but we can see your reaction to the students, and we can sometimes hear things from them. And that is exactly the problem I had, or challenge as a researcher, when I was doing my dissertation, I had the same kinds of things where the students were often off camera, but I could see the way that the teacher picked up and responded to different things. And then sometimes I could just hear this really loud reaction like this, where a student is so moved, like, ooh, this, now's your chance, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh my God, it's your chance is removed.
Terminar es no hay más amor. Terminar, sí. Terminar. Bueno. El novio de mi amiga se fue a vivir a otra ciudad.
So you're doing some gestures to indicate, okay, so now that they had broken up and the boyfriend had moved to another city, and there's some visuals with your hand kind of helping to support that meaning of like he went, and a little extra processing time there. So maybe that verb is needing a little extra processing. And then to a different city, again, the gesture with your hand that's indicating a distance or a difference. Yeah.
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 ¿Dónde vivía yo? ¿Cómo se llama mi ciudad? Medellín. Yo vivía en Medellín, mi amiga vivía en Medellín. Ellos terminaron y el novio se fue a vivir a otra ciudad.
Yeah.
So I like that little check on, ¿cómo se dice mi ciudad? And so you're checking, like, I mean, I know it sounds like, hey, how do you say my city? But like you're also checking if they remember your city that you're from, and
displaying that you're treating them like they know you.
Yeah.
Like now, a little quiz, but like a fun quiz. Like, yeah. Like allowing them to display what they know rather than for you telling them in that moment.
Yeah. This is something that also comes up a lot where when we talk about like the definition of I guess communication, like it's communication if the information isn't known. Like it only counts as communication if you're getting information that you don't already know. That's not really true. In normal communication, people do these sort of leading questions where they want to lead towards, it's like, hey, are you busy today? No, I'm not. Great. Can I borrow your car? Like it's leading towards something. And sometimes in conversation analysis, we'll call this like a pre-question. It's like a question that leads to the main question. And so this, like your story involves who's in what city right now. Like it's important for the story. And so for you to ask the students, what's my city? And they go, wait, I just forgot. Medellin. Yeah, that's right. Medellin. Yeah. Yes, they already know that information, but it's a pre-question. And so it is absolutely communication as normal communication happens, because it's leading toward the main issue. Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is like maybe one or two students missed that detail or forgot that detail, or like it's ensuring that they're all kind of tracking
on the same page.
We're getting the way that this story is going. It's something that's going to change now. So we want to make sure they're all kind of proceeding as they need to understand what's happening, I think. So.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Other thoughts, Adriana?
Oh, yeah.
And also the repetition in context. Like I repeated the same. I had already said that, but I repeated it again, adding a new detail, which was making sure they knew that I was from a different city than the one that my husband, friend at that time, moved to.
Yeah. Yeah, the recap kind of, it serves to kind of clarify for everybody. But then they also get that language exposure again.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
Right. Yeah. It reminds me of like there's a researcher named Paul Seedhouse who talks about language teachers doing lots of things all simultaneously. And so there's the communication, there's this story that's unfolding, and then you're also attending to their language progress and their language comprehension, their language production isn't as in view right now, but it is
in the future.
Yeah,
it is,
you're planning ahead. You've got a trajectory for your students in mind as you're going.
Also, I mean, that's sort of the biggest circle that everything else is sitting inside of, because if none of this helped their language, you wouldn't be doing any of this. like obviously, this is such a fantastic way to organize how you interact with your students, because they need that input to grow their language so that they can understand, so that they can talk. But if doing all this didn't lead to that, then none of this would matter. So, we're still language teachers and language learners the whole time. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I can keep playing a little bit. I think, Reed, did we get to your part?
Se fue a vivir a Bogotá.
That was it, yeah.
Bogotá es la capital de Colombia, como Ottawa es la capital de Canadá. Se fue con su familia a vivir a otra ciudad. Más o menos 4 o 5 años más tarde, 4 o 5 años más tarde, él volvió a Medellín con su familia.
Okay. So if I'm tracking correctly, you're like discussing that he had been living in Medellin for a while and then went back to this other city. Does that sound
The opposite.
just
So
tracking?
he's from Medellin. He was in Medellin. He left, se fue
Okay.
to live in the capital, Bogota,
Mm.
and then he came back like 4 or 5
Gotcha.
years later.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Bien, volvió a Medellín. Yo estaba en la universidad. Él estaba en la universidad también. Volvió a Medellín con su familia y otra vez mi amiga, mi mejor amiga, me llamó y me dijo, Alejandro está en Medellín. Vamos todos a salir con Alejandro. Mi amiga ya tenía otro novio.
Okay. Yeah. So
You can see
your
that. You can
friend
see those
tells him
responses. Yeah.
it's
yeah.
being announced. Yeah. And you're starting to hear the trickle of the student voices going like, oh, like, you know, they're anticipating what
Yeah.
must happen. We know the end of this story. We have a wedding photo, you know? And so they're like, okay, this is, you know, and it's already been introduced. This is romantic. This is juicy, you know?
Yeah.
And so
It was interesting. I didn't notice this before, but you kind of retraced, you retracing it in kind of a slightly different way to lead up to the main point. So I don't know how far to go back in time, but basically you said he was in the capital, he came back to Medellin, but then a friend called you and told you that he's come back to Medellin. So like you sort of retraced the story a second time in this little tiny piece, but it's neat that you kind of go through it. And a lot of these are just normal good storytelling tactics. Like good storytellers around a campfire will do that. They'll kind of say what happened and then say what happened again so that you can hit the main point. So that's very
and
cool.
then serves language learning
Yeah.
goals as well, as
Yep.
you were pointing out,
Repetition.
Adriana, like they need the repetition of the word in context yet again. And so
Yeah.
it's a natural, effective storytelling, but it's also providing that kind of input.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That they need.
A little bit more, Reed? Or
There was a point on my list I had 1430 where she lists social
1430.
media. Yeah, she lists social
Okay,
media.
should I
That was
jump
my
ahead a
job.
little bit?
Sure.
We're
Yeah, why don't you go to
close
14?
to time, so
Yeah, maybe like 1425, something like that.
okay, let's jump.
Let's try that.
Uh, let's see, I'm
Yeah, here it is.
1423. How's that?
Let's try that. Yeah.
Hablaba con Alejandro, ¿qué dije? Porque él vivía en Bogotá. Hace muchos años no había teléfono, Snapchat, WhatsApp, nada. Teléfono celular, había teléfono o letters, cartas. Entonces, hacía muchos años yo no hablaba con Alejandro. Bueno,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did-
So it just needs to jump into like things that are relevant to them today to say we didn't have those back then. And so it's kind of by I don't know, it's a way to connect. To me, I see it as like this, whether you intended it or not, it's a neat way to connect to students' personal lives and vocab that they can use additionally, but to say what wasn't happening in the story. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's also helping them to have more of a like the insider view of like, what were you thinking? What were you doing? Because in their place now, why wouldn't they get on some social media or use a cell phone or something and reminding them that like, no, none of that stuff was available. So what could we do? Well, you could make a phone call or you could write a letter.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I think in TPRS we would talk about a shadow item.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you had a target word that you wanted to teach, but the students just weren't into it, then you could say, well, this, they're not into the word for, I don't know, laundry basket. Oh, something more normal, maybe like to see something, and they don't want to talk about seeing something. So you could say, okay, well, he didn't see a movie. Okay. Did he eat food? Yeah, he ate food. Did he see a movie? No, he ate food. But then they're still getting that input if you're doing a sort of old TPRS targeting kind of thing. But this seems like a much more natural way for that to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other thoughts, Adriana? Or, no? Reed, do
right.
you want me to keep playing?
Yeah, see what happens. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Entonces mi amiga me llamó. Vamos a salir con Alejandro y mi hermano y mi novio, porque mi amiga tenía novio, un grupo de amigos. Todos estábamos en la universidad y vamos a ir a bailar a una discoteca.
Yeah. So the scene here, it's your big group of friends, your friend, her boyfriend, big group of friends, all are going to go out and going to go dancing at a discotheque. And yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Just
Yep.
for the sake of like, we try to put everything into English except the episodes that we did in Chinese. So,
Entonces fueron a mi casa, me recogieron en el carro, fueron a mi casa, me recogieron.
yeah. And you're just acting out like the way that it would look if somebody pulled up in a car,
Yeah.
waved at a window and it like a little honk, like,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
here to pick you up. So,
Yeah.
Cogieron en el carro de Alejandro y yo vi a Alejandro y yo pensé,
yeah. And they're reacting to and I saw Alejandro and you do an uppy downy is what I've heard that called on a podcast where it's like, check it out. So what's that guy look like? And
Yeah.
the class members like little twitters. And if I hear it, I hear more maybe female voices at that point laughing. And so maybe
Yeah.
it's indicating something about the, maybe a shared interest there.
Yeah, and also I love that there's no need for language in that moment. Like this is truly about the story. And so acting out that little look up, look down, like it builds suspense. Like it's really about good storytelling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Okay, let's do a little bit more, and I know
Sure.
we're gonna get cut off probably
Okay.
pretty soon. So.
Okay.
yo pensé, hola, guapo, wow. Pero yo,
Yeah.
Oh, what was that
And there's-
whisper? What was the whisper?
Yeah.
The teacher was whispering.
I said guapísimo, like extremely handsome. Like
Okay.
I thought that.
I see.
Yeah.
So to
And
act
like,
out
again,
thinking you were whispering super quiet, like you were thinking.
Yeah,
it.
the voice
that's
modulation
cool.
makes you just want to listen in. And so like that, yeah. I thought it was something like, it was like silent. I didn't say any of this, I was just thinking, but it actually was. It just wasn't the word you used, but it was like, yeah, the whole back and forth about the whole thing. So yeah, and you can hear the anticipation level of the students with the little reactions of like, oh, kind of things. And yeah.
That's great.
Reed, should we stop right here and maybe
Yeah, and just
some
open
final thoughts?
chat. Yeah, some final thoughts. So Adriana, was there anything that you have thought so far? I actually had a question, but I forgot it. So I would just open it up like that.
Or anything else you want to tell us, either about this
Yeah,
particular
anything we should know
incident?
about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Something that I like sharing with teachers is that when they're doing these things, like honestly, relax. You are having conversations with your students. You know your students more than anyone else. You know their level. Keep the language at their level, and you're telling them a story. And try to have that storytelling ability that is part of being a human. Like honestly, we all have that ability, and we all can improve.
Sure.
As a storyteller. So tap on that ability and tell them stories and forget that you're teaching Spanish. You're telling them a story in Spanish or whatever language you teach.
Question. I think a lot of language teachers would think, okay, well, it's not really a language lesson if I don't have some new vocabulary I'm trying to teach them. My mind recently for myself with my daughters has been when I try to communicate with my daughters at home, I try to find words that they already know so we can get our thing done. Like we got to eat dinner. I'm going to use words that they know. I'm not trying to introduce new vocabulary. And that's carried over into my classroom where I'm like, if I'm talking about pictures, how do I communicate? And just in the moment, I'm not really thinking about it too much, but just I'm trying to find words they already know. And that's about communicating. Do you have any sense of like trying to avoid new words or they just come up when they have to?
No, I add any new word, like again, and it might be because of all the years teaching, like I this comes already natural, I stay at their level, and I have different levels. I teach beginners. These ones would be like second year, and I also teach IB. So after this class, I get the advanced level, which is like a different level. So I regulate my level. I know which are the new words. I'm not going to shy away from the new words, because if I need a word to tell the story and convey the message, I will add the words. Of course, I'm going to control myself as like how many new words I'm going to introduce. I'm going to pick the ones that I really, really need for the picture, like matrimonio, casarse, terminar. Those are like important for this chunk of the story. Those are words that I'm not going to repeat, like circle. I'm not worried about the acquisition of those words. That's why I write them on the board. I make sure they understand, and then we move on. The teacher part, I mean, for those teachers that are more traditional, I want to say, like, but what are you teaching? Mis amores, I'm teaching past tense. Like
Yeah.
both past tenses in Spanish are like hardcore.
Yeah. It
It
is.
takes
Yeah.
years
Where's
for
the
them
rigor?
to
Oh,
use them
that's
in
the rigor.
context.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
moving between one, because traditionally for Spanish, the textbooks introduce one past tense in the second year and the other past tense in the third year. And in the fourth year, they let students figure it out to put it together, and never happens. They can never put it together. So here I'm moving between one and the other one, one and the other one. So within the context, I'm actually teaching the hardest part, which
Yeah.
is like using both past tenses naturally.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Which is
So
why people communicate, as we talked
yes.
about a little bit ago. Yeah.
First year also, or do you shelter away from both past tenses during the first year?
No, I introduced both past tenses in the first year, but within like a month and a half, a couple months with me doing all the present tense and storytelling in present tense, and those verbs that they have already acquired, I start using
Uh,
them in past tense through
uh,
PQA and calendar talk. And
interesting.
again, not expecting acquisition because it's high frequency but late acquired. So, but I expose them as soon as I know. I know when they're ready. As soon as I know they're ready, I start exposing them. So when they come back to me in second year, we are more in the past tense realm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
makes for
And I
good
think it just
stories.
that
Yeah.
again, that whole, like, to bring it back to that student-centered mindset of designing lessons and interactions around what they can do, what they can understand. And I think this was one of the challenges for me in transitioning towards a more communicative and comprehension-based type of teaching approach. The challenge of like, well, I taught that, but they don't seem to understand it. Like being able to start getting in tune with, does this person understand what I'm saying? You have such a beautiful way of showing that is possible in the way that you're interacting in this video with your students. Like that it is very evident that you have a keen sense of where they might have trouble, where they might find it funny, where they might be surprised, where you're wondering what they think of that one. You're needing a little clarity for, writing the word up. And like it's a beautiful thing to see this kind of communication event in a classroom, and it is powerful.
Yeah. 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 It was a real treat to
Yeah.
watch this. I'm really glad.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you.
And
Yeah.
we'll also link to Adriana's, I think you have a website, and I know you publish some curriculum for Spanish and do
Oh,
storybooks for Spanish learners,
oh,
which I think are
fantastic.
also available in French and maybe English.
Some of
Too.
them in
Some of them.
French, some of them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this seems, yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead,
are
Dan.
we good to wrap
I
up,
think we
Reed, or
are.
is
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
anything? Yeah.
This is good. No, there could be a million more things to talk about, but I think
Oh,
this is a
yeah, that's great.
it's a clean place to stop.
Yeah.
Unless
And
Adriana wants to add anything.
or I'd be interested to hear from listeners too, particularly
Mm,
those who just listened to the audio. Did we explain enough? Because would it
sure.
be worth doing this again?
Right.
Those who saw this on YouTube, you got to see the visuals because I was sharing screen as we recorded. But I'm curious
Right.
if this would be something we maybe should repeat again with another
Hmm.
language teacher in a different language, perhaps, or something. So,
Or with Adriana again.
yeah. Yeah. So thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much.
much.
Thank you for
Yeah, thank you,
inviting me.
Adriana. Well, thank you for coming. Yeah, this is real great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look forward to talking again soon. I haven't seen Adriana in person since 2019, you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go into the same conferences for a long time, but I guess COVID kind of
Mm,
slowed things down.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I have been Reed Riggs.
And I'm Diane Neubauer. And thank you to Do you want to say your name?
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
Adriana Ramirez.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.